Thank you everyone for putting up with me, because I'm actually probably here by default. I'm not an educationalist. I don't know a lot about technology, and I consider myself more probably to be a businessman. And unfortunately, for my sins, I've been nominated for a number of things and dobbed in lots of times. And at the moment, I'm chairman of the Edinburgh Interactive Festival, where we look to celebrate the culture and art and philosophy that come with video games and try and move it into a much more accepted media format compared to other creative industries. And in that process, I actually, Graham came up to Edinburgh one year, and I wanted to try and educate him in the ways of single malt whiskey. And unfortunately, I think I was gazumped, and that's why I'm here. So made a commitment that I couldn't get out of. The last few weeks have probably been a bit depressing for me, having gone back to Australia and to see us lose the Ashes, but we didn't actually lose them because England already had them, so they retained them. But it was a bit of a whitewash, and it was a bit sort of depressing with the weather there, coming back here to the dark and cold climes of Britain. But there is a silver lining, and the fact is that I'm here hopefully to talk to all of you and impart some hopefully non-parochial information about Nintendo. As I say, I don't profess to know too much there, so I'm just probably going to be a little bit parochial and talk a little bit more about Nintendo, because I really don't have the expertise to talk about, as I say, I wouldn't say opposition, but our competitors' products, and I know Ray will probably be able to add more to that there. So you've got a little bit of time now to catch up on your emails, have a little bit of a snooze and refresh yourselves until we get some more intriguing speakers on like Derek. Why shouldn't learning be fun? And I think that's sort of one of the things when I was young. And I remember many years ago I used to coach athletics, and obviously for my size I was a throw coach, so shot put, discus. And I always looked at it that some of these sort of learning processes can be boring or mundane and routine, and after a while, you know, the kids lose interest. So to me it was always to try and make things fun. So when we were coaching athletics, what we'd do, we wouldn't in some instances actually throw a shot put, or discus, or a javelin. We'd have a bucket of water, some sponges. Of course, it was lucky in Australia during that season, it was sort of like 30 degrees. So we'd have water fights with sponges. And so, you know, kids are picking up sponges and throwing them, and they don't realise they're actually doing something that will benefit the full application when it's all put together in one of the events that we do. So, and it was always interesting to me, parents would watch these activities, and afterwards they'd get their kids and they'd go and force them to do more throwing, and they'd say, right, you're throwing the shot put, you've done it 10 yards, you've got to do it 11 next one. And they've got these kids throwing and throwing, and the kids are getting tired and they're getting bored of doing it, and they're not getting any better. They can't see any improvement because they're getting tired with it, and their minds are starting to switch off. So I always sort of looked at it, of breaking these things down into small components that were fun, that can actually, when put together, make the whole activity or the whole experience worthwhile. So how can video games play a role in learning? I believe very much in the hidden values, the unforced use in learning, the organic development, so not being pressured or forced to it, and the adaptation of existing content. This is where I think a lot of you have seen some of our product there, to provide assistance in education. It's not as a replacement for more traditional values, but more as an enhancement. I don't profess, as I said before, to be an expert in education or even technology, but I thought I'd just give a little bit of an update on video games. But I've always been interested in change, and as you can see with our industry, there's been a lot of change over many years. And also looking at the process of improvement, probably more from a business and process point of view, but always with an open mind. And I think that's really important when we've been discussing video games in education. It's not meant to be a history lesson, even though I did enjoy history at school, but I want to give some context and background to video games and their place and relevance at this event. Those that I know there's a number of people here, Tom and that will probably know a lot more about some of these things than I do, so these are only some rudimentary thoughts. In fact, if we look back, it only starts in 1961 there, but if you go back to, I think it was January in 1947, the first patent was lodged in the US for a cathode ray tube amusement device by a guy called Thomas Goldsmith Jr. And it was inspired by radar displays used in World War II. As with a lot of scientific endeavour, the spin-off benefits from the original invention sometimes have more value than the original concept. This is no different a thought, I think, from the original when video games first came about and how they can be used in learning. Just because they originally weren't developed for education, there's no reason why some games cannot be adapted to offer some educational values. And it doesn't mean every game and it's all parts of a game, but there are, as we've seen, certain concepts, I think, that can be of value. The early games machines, however, were very rudimentary, and therefore it was difficult to conceive their use outside of pure entertainment. But how things have changed. I'm pretty simple and find the array of products now that can be used not only for entertainment, communication, and education, varied and sometimes complex, but to me conflicting sometimes as to their actual purpose. If we look at an iPhone offering so many apps on that, was it meant to be a phone to start with? It's going into a games machine. There's so much, I think, complexity there. I don't think I'm alone, as I've seen recently the CES show held in Las Vegas, mobile phones being developed that are retro in their concept. No cameras, no big numbers, they have big numbers and small ones, dial tones, more what a phone originally was. Maybe it's a kickback against complexity or technology. Maybe it's just me being an old fart. But to be honest, I do own 5 of the above products, however, I only use certain features on each one of them that provide the best solution for my needs. Not one of them can be a machine that does everything for everyone to the full satisfaction of what they would like. There's an old image and people's perceptions, and that's always the sort of thing I think you find a lot of people that have perceptions that haven't really been changed over the years. And the old image of a video gamer being a 16 to 24-year-old male sitting in a dark room, being antisocial, playing shoot-'em-up games, killing people. That may be true for some, and there's quite a big growth in some of those games. Everyone's probably heard of Call of Duty and that, but it changes over the years. But there's a much wider audience now and a much broader content available. We have people from 6 to 96 playing. I remember the president of our company, when we first were talking about he said our target audience was 6 to 60. And then we found an old lady in a home, about 80, using it. And then just recently we found another lady who was 96 years old, plays Wii regularly and actually is called the Strike Queen in the nursing home when she does Wii with bowling. So we now have a target audience, we say 5 or 6 to 96, which makes it very hard when you're a marketer of where you target. The other thing I think, the great thing is that we've now got families playing, children, parents, grandparents, all playing together and having something in common. And what we look at is that something common is called fun. And it crosses generations by having fun together, be able to laugh and have something in common that they can talk about. The other thing I think people may not realise, but almost 50% of Nintendo users are female, and even higher with some of the games that we have, like Wii Fit, Art Academy, Brain Training. Our company's point of view is that games can have more social credibility than being an isolated medium for individuals. A lot of our content is aimed at being cross-generational, appealing to male and females alike, and truly great games will cross cultural divides. Games also represent good value. I mean, sometimes we're, I think, as an industry, criticised about the games and the cost of it. But when we compare them to other forms of entertainment, what you pay there, you get hours and hours or per hour cost. You've got a family of 4 go to the movies now. It's probably about £40 plus popcorn or whatever else you want to spend. And you sit and see the movie for 2 hours and that's it. It's a great social experience, good outing with the family, but you can buy a video game for the same price that will last 60, 120 hours and then can be played again and again. As a lot of things in life, moderation is important. And even though we have great products like Brain Training and Wii Fit that can provide mental stimulation and exercise, we always recommend that these are balanced with other activities. And that is something that our company is very big on. As I say, it is probably a little bit of a, I'm not sort of trying to look as an advertising ad for Nintendo, but just more to give a bit of a background, because I think a lot of people sometimes don't realise as an industry, how big it is and how long it's been around. As mentioned here, Nintendo's over 100 years old. Even though we're considered, I suppose, to be a technology company, we started off very, very simply creating traditional Japanese playing cards that were played in the court. And in fact, these were very artistic forms that were actually gold leaf, and they could probably cost up to $5,000, if it was in today's terms, dollars for a pack of cards, and very, as I say, cultural, based in Kyoto. So we've been around for a long time. We've always been the innovators in the creation of interactive entertainment, right back to the days of Famicom and Game & Watch. And we've seen our game characters develop as well into icons known the world over. They've evolved as the technology has given them new leases of life and kept them relevant. So it's all about keeping up to date and being relevant as well to the current generation. And they've become icons for fans both young and old, and are very trusted. I've always been told not to talk about your competition, so I won't, but the arrival of both Sony and Microsoft into the world of video games has been complementary to the growth and development of the industry, providing extra stimulus to developers and to experiment and explore new ideas and concepts. And as an industry, we can provide people with a lot of different offerings across formats, with hopefully something that can appeal to everyone. Well, it's a little arrow going off to the side, is because we sort of look a little bit that there's different offerings from different people. And there's some really powerful programs in that come from Sony and Microsoft. And as I say, Derek used, I think, some examples of Little Big Planet, which, fantastic in that respect. It's also important, though, to recognise that although we're all classified in the same industry and have similarities, we also have major differences. The innovation that Nintendo brought to the market more recently with DS and Wii has shown that we dare to challenge the norm and are proud to be different. We have some very simple goals. We're not a really complicated company. One of them is we want to make people smile. And I suppose it's a sort of basis of trying to let people have fun, and why I believe that it's quite important or very valuable for games in getting to kids and parents alike. We also want to try and increase, and you can see the types of products we've had with things like Wii Fit brain training, is to increase the social acceptance of video games. So people don't look at them as being a waste of time, that you can get some value out of it. Of course, there are games that are just pure entertainment and not meant to be anything else but that. Although I'm not a fan of The Simpsons, in fact, I've always refused to allow my children to watch the program. There are many instances of what we have perceived in the past as not being acceptable becoming cultural icons. My judgment, however, is still in favour of the classical Homer and not the cartoon version. Where are you? And this is one of the things that, so there's a few things I want to comment here on to make, apart from the fact, we're in lots of households and all that. But it's more in the areas where we are, in the areas of schools, colleges, universities, hospitals, care homes, doctor surgery, rehabilitation centres. There's an organisation called Starlight Foundation, and they have a thing called a fun centre, which they put into, I know in Australia, there's fun centres in all the wards in Australia as well, and I know there's some people here from Australia. And here in the UK, we've made a pledge with them that every children's ward in the UK will have a fun centre, and it includes a Nintendo Wii, some DS's, DVD and TV. And what the doctors have found when these centres are in the ward is a number of things. The kids that are, when they're there, I'm not saying it's a scientific fact, but they've found that there's up to a 15% increase in their recovery rates, because their minds are taken off the problems they've got. The other thing it does is in wards that don't have them, the kids don't talk. They're all worried about what's wrong with them. Whilst when they've got the fun centres there, they talk to each other about how did you go on this, how did you do that, and it takes their minds off things. There's a lot more social interaction. The other one we're talking about rehabilitation is at Headley Court, where a lot of our servicemen go for rehabilitation after losing limbs and from recent conflicts. And I was at a function with Help for Heroes, and I met a colonel from the Scots Guards, and he was telling me about, at Headley Court, some of the processes they use there. And he was talking to an American counterpart, and he said they spent $60 million in developing this rehabilitation centre in Florida with a huge IMAX cinema, and they had all these bikes and technical equipment there for the soldiers to get to recuperate on. And he said, but your guys seem to recover a lot quicker than ours. They seem to get on. He said, what do you do? What's your expenditure? I said, oh, we just have 6 Wii Fits lined up, and they all stand there competing next to each other, playing football. And it's this whole thing of not realising you're doing work, that to me, and having fun, which helps in people developing. What we do, we're an entertainment company first and foremost. We do not create products designed for education. It's not the business that we're in. But we have developed what we consider intuitive interfaces. With the DS, going back many years, we found people, as they got older, video games were becoming too complex, lots of buttons to push, things to do, so we tried to make it easier. And it made it more approachable, so with the DS, with the touchscreen and the pen. And the same with the Wii. A lot of the games, you had to do so many button combinations to get moves. And so we developed being able to just point and wave. So we've made it, as far as we're concerned, to make it very approachable. We're very simple in what we have. We are and what we have, no hidden agendas to try infiltrate into education or the health system by stealth. Our product has been discovered, though, by clever people that have been innovative in looking for new ideas and have adopted or adapted our existing technology and games into education because it's economical, simple to use and fun. I'm sure Derek Robinson and Jill Halliburton have explained and can explain much better than me the values that they have discovered. Some of the products, and just say it's not a product ad, but just to say, give you an idea of what the products, even though they're not designed for these areas, but are found in education, have very different premise to each other and other relevancies to different subject areas, ranging from maths, biology, geography, physiology, art, fitness, reading and reasoning. I'd probably be drawing a long shot to claim that Mario also teaches positive values and they can be used, but he does rescue Princess Peach from the evil Bowser without actually killing anyone. So maybe one day someone will use him for philosophy or such. I know Dawn's even talking about using Mario Kart for something. The current climate, I know with education and everywhere, there's a lot of pressure on cutting costs, need to provide value for money, you haven't got the money to spend on technology, targets to achieve, etc. What we feel that we've got existing product that can be acquired readily in the market and reasonably priced. There is no reason to reinvent the wheel or for government to waste money on developing expensive new concepts. We unknowingly already have the here and now. What we don't do, we don't want to try and create work for anyone. We don't want to try and preach. We just let it happen. We don't want government help or try and fit things retro into a digital curriculum. We don't have the expertise in education, nor do you profess to. However, we do use experts to help make sure that our games are as accurate as possible in some of the concepts that they use, such as Professor Kawashima with brain training. We do not look to the government to legislate or subsidise for our benefit, except for the protection of intellectual property. And as an industry, the assistance to make sure that all creative industries are competing in the global arena on a level playing field. I could go into a bit of stand on a bit of a bandwagon there about intellectual property, but I know as teachers you guys are all very much stand behind the law. There are already people who have developed experience and expertise in using our product. You may already be familiar with some of them, as we've had already. Giving a plug for some of our other speakers, but Derek Robertson and Dawn Halliburton to come and Jodie Collins. This is happening now. It's not just happening now, it's been happening for a number of years, because I know some of you have been coming to these conferences, have already heard them speak. I must be quite clear as well that none of these people are on our payroll, and they've discovered their achievement, and we have discovered their achievements in this area after reading about them in the news. Just a short clip, because it's gone, they're already ahead of me, I think I'm being cued to move, but just a short clip to show how some of our products are being used.
My name is Dawn Halliburton. I'm a teacher at Oakdale Junior School in Redbridge. I've been a teacher now for 16 years and it's the best job in the world. No day is ever the same. The children are enthusiastic, engaging, want to learn, and that's what makes it all worthwhile. The effect it's had on the class has been fantastic, the concentration and engagement, and also the effect it's had on me as a teacher, because I get enthused when I see them learning and talking to them about their learning. And it's fantastic because you've got a common point, and they're not used to a teacher, I suppose, being excited about games, because that's what they do when they go home. When I brought the box of DSs into the hall the first time, the hall almost erupted, and they were like, "We've got our own DS, it's fantastic." Because their view of is we're going to be using it to play all the time.
How much time has lapsed?
Using games definitely encourages children to learn because they don't realise they're learning. They think they're playing a game.
So we're saying 2 hours and 40 minutes, go on then.
We use the DSs for the brain training. It helps them understand maths. We've been using the console now for 3 years and the children are completely engaged with it. They said the learning was in their hands, which I really like, and I just thought that sort of summed up the use of the console in the classroom. They feel ownership of their learning, which is a real great motivator for them and teachers.
So I'll move through quickly. There's a lot of evidence around, not only from the speakers, but just in other studies, etc., where games are seen as being very positive in education. But not just education. As I mentioned before, earlier, about all the different areas where games are being used, it's something that surprised us. But at the same time, I think it's in a lot of instances where some people still felt, or no, they don't now, but I was going to say, you won't believe that the world is round. Also, there are detractors in video games that don't believe the benefits. You won't be able to read this as such, but this is from Mumsnet, and it's comments actually about Dawn's use of games in the classroom and saying they can't believe it. In fact, we used some of that clip as an advert, and the feedback that was coming back was saying, "Oh, that actress is a very bad actress. She's not a very good actress." And Dawn was saying, "Well, yeah, I'm not an actress. I'm a teacher, but I'm a bloody good teacher." And as people don't believe that these things are happening, and all these things are actually real. So, just in summary, what our belief is as far as games in learning is that there's opportunity for it to be integrated into existing lessons and activities to enhance. We look at organic growth in the use, so we don't look for it to be pushed or preached to people that you should be doing this. You discover things, you work out things and say, hey, this might work. And I think as we've seen with some of the kids too, when they've been using it and been looking to implement it in their own growth. We don't look at an education area or anything like that as a profit area. It just happens, as I say, organic. And I think it should be complementary. It's not a replacement or a substitute. You guys know what works for you and your students and are the best people in that respect. The future, this is a little bit of a product plug. I can't tell you too much about it because we haven't launched it yet, and it will be launched probably in March. But apart from being 3D anytime, anywhere without glasses, there's a lot of other capabilities that this will be able to enhance when people are looking or have used DS in a classroom as far as the interaction between units and potentially the teacher. And there's more opportunities, I think, for people who've innovated with the product to push the boundaries of interactive education here. Just to finish, and I'll probably read this a little bit in case, unless, it's just a picture of a house burning. Why is our house on fire? It's Grandpa, he lost control while bowling. He threw the Wii remote into the TV screen. It knocked over the candles we're using as a makeshift sensor bar, because a sensor bar uses lights. They set fire to the skid-proof glove, because he's holding the thing, lying on the floor, and the whole thing flared up like Reggie's nostrils. We were lucky to get it alive. Good Lord, do you realise what this means? Someone over 60 played a video game. I'll alert the media. Now we've got all ages, all sexes playing video games in different contexts. It should no longer be seen as something unusual. It should actually be those that haven't tried new ideas that are the odd ones out. The young should not have a monopoly on fun. And I think fun is a really important part of education. Thank you very much.